Hey, this is Nikita. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my predictions for UFC on Fox 14, Gustafsson versus Johnson, which happens on January 24th. Overall, I like this card a lot. Got some really good, a couple blue chip prospects on here. Mirsad Bektic, who's in the Fight Pass prelims. He's fighting a really good prospect in Alan Omer. Konstantin Erokhin is actually one of the best heavyweight prospects out there. He's fighting Viktor Pesta, who actually isn't a bad heavyweight prospect himself. Mairbek Taisumov isn't a bad prospect. Beal isn't. I'm not too high on him as a prospect, but I'd still call him a prospect. Makwan Amirkhani, he's an alright prospect. Sultan Aliev, I guess you can still consider him a prospect. Not the greatest prospect. Albert Einstein Tumenov, good prospect right there, only 22. Musoke is actually not a bad prospect. Nicholas Musoke is not a bad prospect himself. Turns out All Stars. And the main card's solid. Phil Davis versus Bader's good match between top 10 guys. Mousasi Hendo. I think that's more, for divisional relevance, I don't really think it's... I think at this point with middleweight, you have guys like Rockhold, Yoel Romero, Jacare, Machida that are just higher than these guys right now. This is still a good fight. This is a fight that it surprisingly never happened in Pride. Never happened in Strikeforce, actually. And it finally happened in the UFC. It took a long time for that fight to happen. And Gustafsson versus Johnson, really good fight. Should name the #1 contender for Jones versus Cormier. Unless they go with a rematch with Jones-Cormier, then, it's not going to happen. Okay, let's get started. Alexander Gustafsson fights Anthony Rumble Johnson. Johnson has an 18-4 record, 12 wins by KO or TKO, 6 wins by decision. He also has 3 losses by submission. 30 years old, 6'2" compared to Gustafsson, who's billed as 6'4". I think he's actually taller than that though. He's on an 8-fight win streak, training at the Black Zillions, and it shows, man. His kickboxing has just gotten so much better under the Black Zillions. He's always had really good kicks, and now he's even more polished now than he's ever been. He has really good kicks, really heavy-handed guy. Has legit one-punch KO power. He's a good wrestler offensively, and his takedown defense. Once that Phil Davis fight, man, that guy was just defending takedowns left and right. And he made Phil Davis pay for trying to take him down. There's still questions about Johnson, though. I remember back when he was at welterweight, he was not very strong off his back. So I don't know if that's still a factor. And also, he's a guy that, in the past, it's not lately, but in the past, if he got hit clean, just once, he would resort to wrestling. Because he was something of a front runner, So I don't know if that's the case with him at 205. I don't think it is as much of a case because I haven't seen it. But for the most part, he's usually been ahead, too, in a lot of his fights. Alexander Gustafsson, 16-2 record. 10 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub, 27 years old. He's 6'4", trains out of All Stars and Alliance. He has strong boxing, he uses combinations well, heavy-handed. He uses a lot of movement too. He's a movement-based fighter. Especially, you can see that that's an Alliance thing, where it's a lot of movement, high volume, not always power punching though, but it's high volume striking. He's got a really good chin. Once the Jones fight, for example, you can just tell this guy's chin is like granite. His takedown defense is surprisingly solid too for a guy that doesn't have a wrestling background. Even when he fought Phil Davis before he went to Alliance, he was actually defending a good amount of Phil Davis's takedowns. That's before he went to Alliance. And now, even like Jones had a hard time taking him down and keeping him down. His overall grappling's improving too. He watched the Jimmy Manuel fight. He gets on top, works a half guard game, looks to actually pass guard and whatnot. Who did he submit? Submitted like James DeHuna, So his overall grappling game's improving. So it's hard for me to call. Gustafsson has a lot of power in his strikes. But I would argue that Johnson, and the way Johnson throws, he throws a lot of power strikes in general. I don't even know if Johnson works behind a jab, really. Yeah, I don't think he really does. I'd have to, geez, I should watch some footage. Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't think he's a guy that works behind a jab. He's a guy that generally throws a lot of power strikes. He also has combinations, though. They're not just ones and whatnot. Throws really good kicks, too, and really strong kicks. With Gustafsson, he's more of a movement-based fighter, especially lately, Throws good boxing combinations, got a good chin. So this one's really hard for me to call. Coming in, Anthony Rumble Johnson, I thought he'd lose to Phil Davis, and he just dominates him. So he's definitely a guy I've underestimated. I don't know about how the height difference is going to work for Johnson, though. I think that definitely favors Gustafsson. Not say that Johnson can't do body kicks or leg kicks, though. So he does have weapons. It's not like he can't get his fist to his face either. I think he could be able to do that. So that makes it interesting. I gotta wonder if Gustafsson would actually go for offensive takedowns on Johnson. Might not be the best idea. Like I said, Johnson has good takedown defense, and he makes you pay if you miss takedowns. Cardio should be fine for both. Jeez. Oh, man. Mirsad going to pick, I'm leaning towards Gustafsson to win this one. But, man, I feel like, I'm almost tempted to change my pick because I feel like I'm underestimating Johnson. I don't really know where Gustafsson where he's going to excel at or be able to beat Johnson, I do wonder if some of those things I mentioned earlier, like getting hit, going to his wrestling, being something of a front runner, is going to hurt Johnson or not. Man, this is close fight now. I think that was one of the only things that's kind of making me not pick Johnson, but otherwise, yeah, I'm gonna go with Gustafsson to win this one. Dude, it's a close fight though. I wouldn't say any one guy has superior striking. I think Johnson's more of a power puncher than Gustafsson. Not to say that Gustafsson, has pillow fish or anything. He hits hard too. He's knocked dudes out. Knocked out Manuel with the knee, on his last fight. So, can't underestimate him. The height difference may favor Gustafsson. I guess that I am still kind of going with the whole front runner thing with Johnson. Because if he's not ahead and Johnson definitely does his best work when he's ahead, but once he faces adversity, I don't know how well he's going to do or not. Granted that Arlovsky fight, he was actually facing some adversity. He dropped him in the first round, though. I think he might run into more adversity against a guy like Gustafsson, and I don't know how he's going to react to that. Those are very small things, actually, because I'm kind of guessing, how he's going to react to that. I don't really know at this late, at this stage of his career, if that's even a factor anymore. So, I'm gonna go with Gustafsson. I don't really see. I see the possibility of Johnson not, hurting Gustafsson bad, maybe knocking him out. Definitely there. Definitely there. I can see Johnson Gustafsson possibly did the same to Johnson. Yeah, there isn't really any area that I find each guy being absolutely superior to one another. Even in the stand-up, I can't really say one guy has like this huge edge over the other guy. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Gustafsson. Interesting, like I said, close fight. Not super, after saying it out loud, I can't actually say I'm super confident in that pick. Next fight after that, Dan Henderson fights Gegard Mousasi. Mousasi has a 35-5 record with 2 draws, 18 wins by KO or TKO, 12 wins by sub. Also has 3 losses by submission, 29 years old. Like Dan Henderson, he's a former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. Strong kickboxer, which is interesting. I use the term kickboxing, but actually Mousasi's strength is actually in his boxing. He actually works behind a jab, a really good jab. And that's where his offense actually really generally starts from there, from the jab, and from his boxing mainly. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is actually really strong. He's good off his back. I remember he had this one position where Machida was on top, and he managed to roll Machida and reverse him and get on top of Machida. And throws good up kicks. He'll throw triangles and stuff off his back as well. Actually did more damage off his back against King Mo than King Mo did on top when they fought for 5 rounds. And his ground and pound is actually really solid too. Actually, that's one of his most underrated aspects of Mousasi's game is ground and pound. He knocks dudes out like Silkadu or like Babalu, knocked him out with ground and pound. Problem with Mousasi, though, it's always been his takedown defense. He's always had relatively weak takedown defense. I mean, it's better now. He was defending takedowns really well against like Munoz, but some of the better guys like Jacare and whatnot have been able to take down Mousasi with consistency. Dan Henderson, 30-12 record, 14 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub. He also has 4 losses by submission. He's 44 years old, training out of Team Quest. He's only won 1 of his last 5 fights. That was against Shogun. Then he lost like Machida, Evans, Viktor, and Cormier. He has a really... everyone knows him about... his stand-up's good, but everyone knows that it's about his right hand. That's his money punch. He has 1-punch knockout power with that right hand. He's got a good chin, but I can't help but feel it's deteriorating at this point. Shogun managed to drop him in their second fight. Once in the first, another time in the second. And then Viktor managed to actually... took a lot to actually get the... I think it was more of a TKO victory. I don't think he was knocked out clean. He's got a good clinch game. His wrestling is good. He does have a base there. But it's mainly the... his takedown defense actually hasn't been that great. Henderson actually gets taken down. It's not just like Cormier or anything either. It's a lot of guys manage to take down Dan Henderson. So, I mean, his offensive wrestling isn't too bad, but his defensive wrestling actually needs a lot of work. I can't also help but feel that Henderson is, he's 44, and he's not on TRT. And for a while, I always thought he was just declining. He's just not very quick. I mean, he was never like the quickest guy, but he was always one of the toughest guys, and he still is. But he has veteran savvy. But he strikes. When he strikes, it's kind of slow. He gasses out a lot faster these days. So as good as Henderson is, I can't help but feel he's. I think it's safe to say he's on a D. He's been on a decline for a while. With that said, I gotta go with the younger fighter, Gegard Mousasi, to win this one. I think he can. I think he can hide behind a jab really well, and kind of pick Dan Henderson apart. I think it'll be a more systematic way of winning. I don't think he's just gonna like crush him or anything. And Mousasi's not that type of guy too. He's more systematic about like chipping guys down and then like finishing them off, unless the opportunity presents itself. Otherwise, yeah, I can see Mousasi just chipping away at Henderson. Maybe get the stoppage win, but Gegard Mousasi for the win there. Next fight after that, Phil Davis fights Ryan Bader. Bader has an 18-4 record, 6 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by sub. Also has 2 losses by KO or TKO and 2 losses by sub. 31 years old on a 3-fight win streak. Trains out of Power MMA with like CB Dalloway. I think Gemma's training there now. Darian Caldwell, really blue chip prospect, trains out of Power MMA as well. He is an Ultimate Fighter winner. Strong wrestler. He has one of the best blast double legs in the 205 division. Just one of the best blast double legs out there. It's really good top control and good ground and pound. Stand-up's actually solid enough. I mean, he does get hit clean, but he's pretty heavy-handed as well. Phil Davis, 13-2 record with 1 no contest, 2 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by sub. He's 30 years old, training out of Alliance. He's a strong wrestler, really good top control. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is actually pretty solid. He has a good front choke series. As shown in the Glover Teixeira fight, he's really good in the ride position, man. He can ride his opponent really well. Stand-up, I'd say, is average. He's always been a guy that's his stand-up just, there's incremental improvements, but like he looks really stiff when he throws punches. He's a naturally good kicker, but there's something really stiff about him when he throws his strikes. But he does use a lot of movement. It's a very Alliance thing to do, movement heavy. This is actually a good, pretty even fight. There's definitely a level fighter that Bader can beat and Bader cannot beat. And it really depends. And I've been wrong about Bader before. A lot of times, actually. I would say Bader can beat. He's like, it's kind of an arbitrary number. I forgot what ranking he is. But let's say he's number 7 light heavyweight. He can almost always beat numbers 8 and down, like all the time. But once he gets to like 6 and up, you just can't beat those guys. So it kind of depends. Where is Phil Davis? Is he a higher ranked guy than Bader or not? I think he is. I think, for one, he has a lot more finesse with his wrestling. I think he might be able to take Bader down, possibly keep him there. Stand up, I would favor Bader, especially as far as power goes. Phil Davis, though, is surprisingly hard to hit clean. I think Machida hit him clean, and of course Anthony Rumble Johnson did, but for the most part, he's actually kind of tough to hit clean. He moves a lot. He's really good at getting out of the way. That's the thing. So I can actually see Bader whiffing air a lot of times, just because Davis is actually, I don't think his striking isn't that fluid. He is good at moving and getting out of the way. So with that said, yeah, I'm gonna go with Phil Davis to win this one. I think he's, hopefully he can defend Bader's takedowns. I think he just has a little more finesse in his takedown ability than Bader. Bader has come off to me as more of a blast double type of guy. And the stand-up, like I said, I favor Bader's offense, but I don't know if he can really touch Davis that much. So yeah, Phil Davis for the win there. Next fight after that, Sam Sicilia fights Akira Corassani. Corassani has a 12-5 record with 1 no contest, 1 won by TKO, 3 wins by sub. That's those 5 losses by KO or TKO. He's 32 years old on a 2-fight losing streak. Trains out of Henzo Gracie's. I think that losing streak's to Poirier and Holloway. So those are pretty tough guys. He does have good offensive stand-up, and his grappling actually isn't too bad. The problem with Corassani is, I think one guy actually that I read said it best, he's a good fighter, but he's just really fragile. This guy, I mean, doesn't have the... I don't even know if he has a bad chin per se, but I think he's more of just like a front-runner type of guy, you know. You know, when he gets hit, he just like covers up, you know. Doesn't react well to getting hit. He's just kind of, yeah, I think that's it. I wouldn't really say he has a bad chin. Yeah, I don't know if that's the case. I think he's just, he doesn't react well to getting hit. And maybe it just mentally collapses if he does get hit clean. Sam Sicilia, though, 13-5 record, 7 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by sub. That's his 3 losses by submission. 28 years old, training out of Sick Jitsu with the likes of Juliana Pena and Michael Chiesa. He's trading wins and losses right now. He's actually coming off a loss, so maybe if the streak continues, he's going to win this fight. As far as his stand-up goes, he's something of a brawler with heavy hands. You know, when he started the UFC, like when he fought like Honey Jason, he showed us like really good chin. And it took a while for his chin to crack. But I noticed lately, guys like Cole Miller managed to crack his chin. And then when he lost his last fight against the dude with the crossing kicks, gosh, is that Kakuno? Is it Kakuno? Could be Kakuno. I'm not too sure. You know, he got dropped by, I think it's Kakuno. His takedown defense actually isn't too bad either. So yeah, I think Sam Sicilia's chin is definitely deteriorating. You know, the fact of the matter is, they're putting Akira Corassani and Sam Sicilia on the main card of Fox. I think it's in Sweden. It looks like it, seeing who they have here. I'm going to go with Corassani. Like I said, the guy's actually a good fighter. His stand-up's not too bad. Managed to wobble or even drop Poirier. You know, he's not a bad fighter. The thing is, though, Sicilia can beat Corassani. That's the thing. He's a heavy-handed guy. If Sicilia touches Corassani's chin, he could put Corassani to sleep or get the TKO victory. It's definitely possible. I think Corassani's just a little more well-rounded, though. I'd say Sicilia's the more tougher of the two, though. You know, he's just more game. You know, you hit Sicilia, he's gonna keep going at you. But overall, I'll go with Akira Corassani for the win there. Okay, on to the prelims on Fox Sports 1. Nicholas Musoke fights Albert Einstein Tumenov. Musoke has a 13-3 record with 1 no contest, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 5 wins by sub. 28 years old, training out of All Stars. You know, he's a guy that has good stand-up and good grappling. His stand-up defense could use some work, though. I have seen him dropped against the like of Lester Sakara, I think, managed to wobble or drop him. And then that one Brazilian dude like dropped him good with an overhand right. And in the second and third round, blue chip prospect Kelvin Gastelum managed to touch up Musoke a good amount of times as well. Tumenov, 14-2 record, 10 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by decision. He's 22 years old on a 2-fight win streak. This guy's got some strong stand-up, you know, punches and kicks. Man, in his last fight, I think it was against Matt Dwyer. I knew Dwyer had like really bad stand-up defense. 2 head kicks, like almost pretty much in a row, knocks out Dwyer out cold. Heavy-handed guy. His grappling is improving though. I mean, he lost to was it Eldemar? I think it was Eldemar Alcantara. And it's pretty much he's just getting taken down a lot. And that's how he lost his fight against Eldemar Alcantara. Otherwise, that is a threat though, because Musoke is actually a very good grappler. Beats Gegard by an armbar. Actually won the first round against Kelvin Gastelum. Managed to take his back. So that is definitely an area where Musoke can capitalize on Tumenov. I feel that Tumenov, though, he's getting a lot better about it, especially his distance management, to make it really hard for guys to like shoot in on him. He's getting a lot better about that. I really like Tumenov's stand-up. I think this guy is, I would actually classify as blue chip prospect. Only 22 years old. Watch his fight against Dwyer. I think he also fought, was it Lapsley? I think it may have been Lapsley. Knocked him out too. You know? This guy knocks guys out. Like I said, I like what I see from his stand-up. Heavy-handed guy. Accurate striker too. Needs work on his grappling though, but I'm going to go with Albert Tumenov for the win there. Next fight after that, Kenny Robertson fights Sultan Aliev. Sultan has a 13-1 record, 10 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by decision. He's 30 years old on a 4-fight win streak. Trains out of Champion with the likes of Frodo Hospitallayev. It'll be his first fight in the UFC. He's a good wrestler with good top control, and it's good ground and pound as well. His stand-ups, it always seems kind of average to me. Kenny Robertson, 14-3 record, 3 wins by KO TKO, 9 wins by sub. He's 30 years old on a 2-fight win streak. He's a good wrestler. He's really relentless about getting takedowns. He's got some good top control. His stand-up's pretty reckless. I mean, he lunges strikes a lot. Here's the thing with Sultan Aliev. I remember he fought Doug Marshall. Just laying preyed on him. Didn't win the fight though. Probably, you know, some guys say he should have. Others say, you know what, he didn't do anything once he got in top control. I noticed after that loss to Marshall, he kept getting these wins. So I'm like, oh, hey, who's he fighting? And it's like, oh man, he was kind of can crushing after his fight against Doug Marshall. One thing about Robertson is he's one of the class of welterweights, and there's a couple of these guys, specifically in welterweight. There are no other weight classes, but welterweight has a lot. It's like Court McGee, Mike Pierce, Ryan LaFleur, Kenny Robertson, George Sullivan, these other just like blue-collar type of fighters. And Robertson fits that bill. You know, just constantly working. You know, not great at any one aspect of MMA, but, you know, actually Robertson's a good wrestler, and actually his ground skills are actually pretty solid. But they're not, like, the greatest at any one aspect of MMA, but they're just really blue-collar. You know, they'll clinch you up against the cage, get takedowns, they can grind if they need to. Serviceable enough stand-up to make, you know, so they can't be totally exploited there. That's like the, you know, Kenny Robertson's in that class of just like not really a prospect, kind of close to a gatekeeper, but a really good fighter. One of those pretty much a tough out type of guy, especially for a prospect. You know, I remember Robertson. He beat Eldemar Alcantara. Just out wrestled the guy, outworked the guy. That's what they do. These blue collar fighters, they tend to outwork their opponents. That's what it is. I'm gonna go Kenny Robertson to win this one. I think he can. Aliev actually has good takedown ability and whatnot, but Robertson's not a bad wrestler himself. I think he's just going to up his work rate, relentlessly goes for his takedowns and whatnot. And, you know, just constantly work to get the win. Next fight after that, Andy Ogle fights Makwan, Mr. Finland, Amirkhani. Andy Ogle, 9-5 record, 2 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by sub. That's his 2 losses by submission. He's 25 years old on a 3-fight losing streak. Trains out of Team Calbon with the likes of Paul Sass and Terry Adam. He's only won 1 of his last 5. He's lost to like Akira Corassani, who I thought he should have got the win against. Beat Josh Grisby, but then who else did he fight? I know he fought Charles Oliveira in that run. He fought Cole Miller. And I forgot who else he fought. He's one of those like kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. Good stand-up, good grappler, but just doesn't necessarily excel there. He's tough as nails, too. He's pretty tough, tough to finish, very game. Constantly working, kind of like what I was kind of talking about. Like he reminds me of a blue collar type of fighter. Makwan Amirkhani, 10-2 record, 8 wins by sub, 2 wins by decision. He's 26 years old. His first fight in the UFC. So I did watch one of his fights. It was on Cage. It's running this promotion called Cage, right? What I saw, he's a good wrestler. Goes for some high impact slams actually. But yeah, his strength is mainly in his grappling. He will even go so far as pulling guard. But I did like his back control. One thing I didn't like about him though, man, this guy loses position on the ground a lot. He'll go for a submission or something and lose position because of it. He's fun to watch, but he's also kind of sloppy, His stand-up needs a lot of work. There's just not a lot of output with his stand-up. It's just not his strength. This one was actually one of the hardest fights for me to call. I mean, it's kind of deceiving because, Andy Ogle at this point, he's a guy who's on a 3-fight losing streak, right? He's pretty much being brought in to lose to Mr. Finland here. However, the problem is with Amirkhani is that he will get himself in bad positions and he can lose rounds because of it. I mean, he gets reversed, gets in bad position, goes for a leg lock, maybe loses it or something, winds up on the bottom. He'll lose the round. This one was hard for me to call because Ogle is just underrated. He actually did relatively well against Charles Oliveira and Cole Miller. Arguably beat Akira Corassani, He's just a tough guy, Good everywhere, but not great anywhere. But, you can't sleep on the guy, You can't coast with this guy. I'm hesitantly picking Makwan Amirkhani to win this one. What I see is that I think he can get takedowns on the Ogle. I think he can stay in top position or dominant position long enough to take a round. I can see him getting reversed. I can see him losing in the stand-up. I can see him in bad positions. But I think he can take enough minutes of the round on top or in good positions for at least 2 rounds to get the win. Not super confident in this pick. Like I said, this guy loses position a lot of times. Next fight after that, Nikita Krylov fights Stanislav Nedkov. Nedkov has a 12-1 record with 1 no contest, 6 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by sub, 33 years old. Interesting height difference here. He's 5'11", whereas Krylov's 6'3". He last fought in February 2013. That was against, I believe it was a loss against Tom Watson at middleweight. If I'm not mistaken, this fight I think is going to be at light heavyweight. He's a good wrestler. His stand-up's kind of average. He's a guy that like wings overhand rights that somehow managed to connect though against like that's the thing with his stand-up. I can't say it's really good, but he's heavy-handed. He's a guy that wings strikes. Like, against Luis Arthur Cane when he came into the UFC, that's what he hit him with. Even against Thiago Silva, he managed to drop him with like a winging overhand right. He fights Nikita Krylov, who has a 17-4 record, 7 wins by KO, 10 wins by sub. Also has 1 loss by TKO and 3 losses by submission. He's only 22 years old. He's actually one of the youngest light heavyweights. Tough to really call him a prospect, though. Unfortunately, he might be who he is at this point. He's actually pretty tall, 6'3". He's trading wins and losses. He's a finisher. He's never been to decision. The guy is reckless. Like, honestly, his stand-up's kind of reckless. He just kind of charges in. He is actually not a bad kicker, though, as shown in the Walt Harris fight. His grappling's a bit reckless, too, you know. He kind of scrambles on the ground. I think he gets by on his toughness, though. You know, if the guy actually polishes his game out, he wouldn't be too bad. I do have a really soft spot for Nikita Krylov, because this guy, win or lose, he always has generally memorable fights. Like, that's the thing. There's generally always a finish. Sometimes, you know, he had a laughably bad fight against Silla Paleli. It's his first one to UFC. Came back and actually just head kicked to like Walt Harris and followed up with ground and pound. Unexpectedly. Like, no one thought he was going to win. Then he loses to Von Flu choke against OSP. And then he goes and beats Cody Donovan in a fun, sloppy fight. I think Nedkov's probably the more skilled fighter out of the two. Better wrestler, at least. I can see Krylov running into a couple haymakers. It's just actually tough for me to call. I kind of have a soft spot for Krylov, so I'm biased here. I'm actually making a biased pick. I'm gonna go with Krylov. I think Nedkov's actually the better overall fighter. He's the better grappler and the better wrestler of the two. Krylov, like I said, he can get by just being a tough fighter. You know, like I said, he's like the tougher guy. That's kind of how, you know, he does bull rush into his strikes, into his combinations a lot of the times. He's not always the cleanest guy, but he's one of the tougher guys. I'm gonna go with Nikita Krylov for the win here. You know, I kind of wish this guy would actually get with like one of the better camps, because I think if he polished this guy, he's only 22 years old. He has a lot of fights though. If you polish him off, he's one of the younger light heavyweights out there. He has some good qualities in him. You know, toughness alone is not something he can teach. You know, he's very reckless. If you kind of fix his recklessness, he could actually be pretty good. I wish he'd get one with one of the better camps, but kind of is who he is. Nikita Krylov for the win. Not super confident about that pick. Kind of biased too. Next one is that Jan Cabral fights Mairbek Taisumov. Taisumov, 22-5 record, 10 wins by KO or TKO, 10 wins by sub, 26 years old. I'm more with Taisumov. The most I'm impressed with him would be like his kickboxing. He's a really good kickboxer. He's not too bad on the ground. He showed some holes in his takedown defense and whatnot, especially against Mikel Prazeres. He's like a hulking Brazilian top control player. And Taisumov's fighting Jan Cabral, 12-1 record, 11 wins by sub, 1 win by decision, 31 years old, training out of Novo União. He's a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. His good offensive takedown ability, his stand-up is just, at best, it's average, you know. Here's the thing, and it's something I'm always looking out for against when it comes to Mairbek Taisumov. It's the guy that's going to try and take him down and get top control. And that's Jan Cabral's game. He used to fight at welterweight too. You know, so I can actually see Cabral imitating Mikel Prazeres' game plan to beat Taisumov. Just take down, top control, get dominant position if he can, and get the win there. I think Taisumov though does have, it's not like Taisumov is helpless on the ground. That's not what I'm saying. And he has 10 wins by submission too. But some of these guys, some of these like top control guys have managed to control Taisumov. I'm gonna go Taisumov to win. I think he has superior stand-up. I don't know. The thing is, like I said, I can see Cabral working a grappling-centric, top control-centric game plan to beat Taisumov. It is within Cabral's skill set to do so. But I think Taisumov will be able to get his kickboxing in, touch Cabral up, hopefully defend takedowns. Not too sure if he can or not, and get the win. So I'll go with Mairbek Taisumov to win that one. So right after that, Viktor Pesta fights Konstantin Erokhin. Viktor Pesta, 9-1 record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by sub. He's only 24 years old. Stands at 6'3", whereas Erokhin's 5'11". He has some good stand-up. He's actually not too bad on the ground as well. Decent ground and pound too. He actually had a pretty decent heavyweight fight against is it Ruslan Magomedov? Yeah. Didn't actually do too bad against Ruslan Magomedov. He's a pretty good up-and-coming heavyweight himself. Doesn't gas out, too, like crazy, Konstantin Erokhin, 9-1 record, 8 wins by KO TKO, 1 win by decision. He's 32 years old. He's 5'11". He's on a 9-fight win streak. It's his first fight in the UFC, excuse me, and all of his knockouts are in the first round. I think the only time he went to decision was against Brett Rogers. His boxing's solid. This guy's heavy-handed and has some legit one-punch knockout power. When he touches you, you go to sleep. That's the type of guy he is. He's a strong dude. And he's actually beat some pretty good heavyweights out there. Brett Rogers. Dave Huckabee. I saw him just starch Huckabee. Some other ones didn't. Names are escaping me right now. Erokhin's actually, like I said, one of the better heavyweight prospects out there. I know he's 32. To call him a prospect is much, but heavyweights, as shown with like Fabricio Verdum, Mark Hunt, even like Shane Carwin, even Lesnar kind of started in his like more early 30s. You can be a prospect at heavyweight and still be in your 30s. It's just the way heavyweight works. For some reason, they start later. With that said, yeah, I gotta go with Erokhin for the win here. Like I said, solid boxer, and he's not a brawler too. This guy actually he boxes. He throws combinations well. He's got a good left hook. I think that's what he knocked out Huckabee with. A really heavy-handed guy. His footwork's actually not too bad either. He's not a plodding. He's not like an absolute plodder too. Konstantin Erokhin for the win there. And on the Fight Pass prelims, Mirsad Bektic fights Alan Omer. Alan Omer, 18-4 record, 6 wins by KO TKO, 10 wins by sub, 26 years old. I actually rewatched because I forgot what his skill set had, so I watched this fight with Jim Ehlers. Great fight too. I don't know what they're doing with Alan Omer. He's a good prospect himself, and yet they put him up against like these like blue chip prospects. Like Jim Ehlers was like a blue chip prospect, and so is Mirsad Bektic. It's strange. Like it's like, hey, we got a blue chip prospect. Oh, let's give him to Alan Omer. I don't know why. It's just kind of strange to me. He's a good boxer. Uses combinations well. And he has a really good uppercut too. I remember he was tagging Jim Ehlers with that uppercut constantly. And he's a solid grappler as well. Mirsad Bektic, 8-0 undefeated record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 2 wins by sub. He's only 23 years old, training out of ATT. I I would say Bektic's strength would be in his wrestling and especially his ground and pound. Those, I think it's when he takes guys down and he shows a really good ground and pound. His stand-up's solid as well. He's actually a pretty highly touted prospect. I wouldn't necessarily sleep on Omer though, man. That guy has got some good, his stand-up's pretty solid. He's solid all around, but I really liked what I saw from his stand-up. And, got some pretty quick hands. I'm going to go with Bektic though. I think he can take the fight to the ground, use his wrestling and his ground and pound to get the win over Omer. But tough one. You got two really good prospects in that fight. And finally, Seery fights Chris Beal. Chris Beal, 10-0, undefeated record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 7 wins by decision, 29 years old. They haven't really said what weight class it's going to be in yet. I think it's going to be at 125. So if it is, I mean, Chris Beal, this will be his 125-pound debut in the UFC. I don't know if he's fought at 125 outside the UFC or not, though. He's a good boxer. He actually hit a nice flying knee on Patrick Williams. And his grappling is improving. I think he actually went to the ground with Matsuki Tateki or Matsuo Tateki. So his grappling is improving. Seery, 14-10 record, 6 wins by KO or TKO, 5 wins by sub. That's those 5 losses by submission. He's 35 years old. Solid boxer, uses combinations well, and his takedown defense is good too. What's a Phil Harris fight? Phil Harris tried to take him down, couldn't take him down, got beat up on the feet. Even in the Brad Pickett fight, I mean, it was mainly Brad Pickett's wrestling that would that saved him, because Seery was lighting him up on the feet. He'd get taken down, couldn't really pass his guard or anything, Seery's guard, and did really well against Pickett. This is something. I mean, Chris Beal, he's still a prospect. I wouldn't say he's a blue chip prospect or anything like that. Versus pretty much like an experienced veteran type of guy. So it's either you think really well of Chris Beal or you think he can't get past the veteran. I think Chris Beal, I remember seeing his last fight. He's still a guy that needs a lot of work. He's still somewhat unrefined. I think Seery, he's been around the block. He's definitely more experienced. He's still a solid boxer. He can handle himself on the ground. I'm gonna go with Seery for the win here. I think he might even just be able to outwork Chris Beal and get the win there. Okay, to recap the main card, I have Alexander Gustafsson over Anthony Johnson, Gegard Mousasi beating Dan Henderson, Phil Davis over Ryan Bader, and Akira Corassani over Sam Sicilia. On the FS1 prelims, I have Albert Tumenov over Nicholas Musoke, Kenny Robertson beating Sultan Aliev, Makwan Amirkhani over Andy Ogle, Nikita Krylov beating Stanislav Nedkov, and Mairbek Taisumov over Jan Cabral, and Konstantin Erokhin beating Viktor Pesta. On the Fight Pass prelims, I have Mirsad Bektic over Alan Omer, and Seery beating Chris Beal. So that's it for my predictions for UFC on Fox 14, Gustafsson versus Johnson. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.